Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Boxing. I'm your girl Leti.
I'm LB.
And let's talk about this fight we just got done watching, y'all.
Yeah.
So we had the Filipino boxer Magsayo versus the Mexican fighter Rey Vargas.
Yeah.
Wow, guys. So Vargas got the victory, the decision. He got the victory. So shout out to the new champion.
Yep.
And I'm trying to have our blood pressure go down a little bit. I don't know if you guys were feeling this way about the fight. But here, while I'm simmering down, go ahead. Tell them what you thought. Why our blood pressure is a little high with this fight.
Yeah, so the fight was, it was exactly, if you watch our predictions, the fight was exactly like how we kind of said. Mm-hmm. It was a true 50-50 fight. I mean, if you look at the scorecards came back as close. I mean, he ended up winning a split decision. Mm-hmm. It was a back and forth fight. I thought that Vargas won the fight. You thought that as well. Yeah. Vargas did a good job going to the body. We said that was going to be, a key factor for him, and you can see that. It went to the body and it started to slow Magsayo down. But at the end of the day, Magsayo, you can't ever count him out because we've seen him before in Sejas where he got dropped in the 5th round and, ended up stopping Sejas later. So, he's still dangerous even though he did look like he was tired.
Yeah. However, I don't think Vargas knew that or he wasn't fighting that way, guys. I was saying I'm still trying to have my blood pressure go down a little bit, was just because I wasn't going for any fighter. I thought, again, it was a 50-50 fight. Like we had said, though, we leaned a little bit more towards Vargas because of his boxing style. But again, Magsayo has power. He got a stank in those punches, okay?
Yeah, he did.
But Vargas was just too reckless at times. Like, I was just like, what? Again, like I said, I wasn't going for either one of both of them, but it was just... Yeah. Watching as, just someone that watches boxing, I'm huge on keep your hands up, and keep your defense up. Also, he was throwing wide-ass punches.
He was throwing a lot of wide punches. And he was also, every time he was throwing, his hands would be down. Like, you know what I mean? His hands, and there would be times his hands would be down and he'd be in range. You'd be like, dude, put your hands up. And, and Magsayo, he was able to capitalize, but I still thought he should have been able to capitalize a lot more. In the beginning of the fight, it looked like Vargas tried to come out and kind of set the pace with the jab, and Magsayo came out straight, just over the top of his jab with an overhand right. He was timing his jab from round 1. And I was like, oh, shoot, we was going to be in a fight. I told her, I was like, man, I don't like him getting hit with those shots in the first round.
Yeah, but although you talk about the jab, I don't, at the beginning, I was like, Vargas, why aren't you using your jab to keep Magsayo out, Yeah. Because again, like I had talked about, it was hard for Magsayo to get in when he was fighting against Gary Russell. Vargas has more of a reach on there, and Vargas wasn't using his jab at first as much as I thought he should have came out.
And I'm going to tell you why. Because when he came out trying to start the jab, right? He tried to start the jab, and he was feeling it out. But the fact that Magsayo had the timing on it, he was able to come over the top of that jab. He was able to time it as it's coming out and come over the top of that right hand.
That happened as soon as you had
as soon as I said it.
He's timing him. He's going to come over with the right hand over, and then it happened.
As soon as it happened. And so that kind of discouraged him. But, I mean, he did end up coming back to the jab, later in the fight.
He established that. Double jabbing also at times. When Magsayo would get kind of close, he was like, jabbing to keep him out. So... Vargas, he did his thing again.
Man, he had
us like, whoa. And then Magsayo do his power punches, like you said, don't count him out because even though he looked gassed by even the 5th round, he was breathing heavy against his mouth. Do those power punches.
And I mean, to talk about it, he ended up dropping Vargas. So
9th round.
You know what I mean? He dropped him. So definitely, he was, he had the power throughout the whole fight.
Yeah.
But you could definitely see that he was getting frustrated. He started throwing leaping shots, like leaping wild left hooks. He like when he hurt him, he ended up throwing himself into the ring. By throwing a crazy hook, remember?
Yes. Yeah. And I think one of the commentators said he needed to turn up, to pretty much try to, finish Vargas on 9th round. It was like he kind of did turn up too much that he almost leaped outside of the ring.
Yeah.
But back to what you were saying, I feel like Magsayo could have had a little bit more of a chance had he stayed, what do you call that? We're like a little bit disciplined. Yeah, disciplined. Because I feel like he couldn't get to Vargas so close that he started to get frustrated and just doing wild stuff and just. Yeah. I think he forgot.
Unpredictable too.
Yeah, I think though he forgot the whole game plan and then he started just being focused on. Yeah. I need to knock him out. I need to knock him out.
Yeah, it looked like he kind of made it up in his mind like, okay, it's gonna be knockout or nothing. You know what I mean? But yeah, he was definitely getting frustrated and man, Vargas. Like you were saying, like we talked about the discipline with Magsayo, like man, I was yelling at screen like Vargas to stay disciplined because every time, you know what I'm saying, he would land like a good, you know, something good, he would end up staying in there and being overconfident with his hands down and getting clipped.
Yes.
And getting clipped. I'm like, man, you out here tripping. I'm like, this is yours to win.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm like, this is yours to win.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, you did say also if he loses his fight is because of him.
Yeah, just based on the style, you know what I mean? But that's kind of what I thought. But it was a good fight. It was a good fight.
At one point though, low key, like around after that knockout, was like, shit, Magsayo might get the stoppage. Like,
yeah, I mean, I think that goes with like we were saying, like he was dangerous throughout, and it's not like, and it wasn't even just about him being dangerous. It was the fact that that Vargas was giving. There were so many openings that he was leaving himself open, and we were like, man, it's only like we're watching like, dang, he's this close. Like Magsayo was like this close so many times. Yeah, there's so many opportunities, and the fact that Vargas, the same punch he got clipped on by trying to throw like a lead uppercut almost with his backhand. And even though he got clipped and dropped it, he came out and was still throwing it. Yeah. He was still throwing. I'm like, stop doing that, you know, because he kept getting clipped with it.
Yes.
But man.
But I never counted out Magsayo. Any crazy hard punch he could have came out, he could have hurt Vargas. So I didn't count him out till to the T. Like I could have been any fight up until the 12th round. You know. Yeah.
Hey, you want to know another funny part during the fight when Vargas got knocked down? You're like, oh, she was standing there like, oh, I can't watch. And I told her, I was like, oh, he's good. He's been here before. I was like, he's been dropped already and got up. He's gonna be fine. I'm like, he feel comfortable.
Guys, yeah, my blood pressure. I was just too much emotion. Like, keep your damn hands up. Like, what? Like, how do you not see you're leaving yourself wide open to get knocked out? You know? Yeah. I was like, I have to step away because it was just getting like too much. Like, and you know what, guys? I don't know if you guys caught this, but I thought it was hilarious because Vargas was throwing some crazy wide left hooks. Yep. You know, like, and one of the times, like, it shows you on the court, like on one of the screens, it'll tell you like what keys to, you know, the success to win the fight, what they have to do, what they got talked about. Yeah. And when Vargas came up, like his three main things was like, the first one I think was like establish the jab, right? Yeah. And then the second one was like, don't do left wide hooks. Yeah. And then the third one was, but do left hooks. Yeah. I thought that shit was hilarious. Like, don't do wide hooks, but still do the hooks. Yeah. Like, I thought that was funny.
Yeah, it was funny because, you know, usually they're like just pretty basic. Like, they're like, establish the jab or land the right hook. But they was just funny. Like exactly how you said it was exactly how I read it.
Because it was like a little dot continuation. Yeah. Don't do wide left hooks, dot, but do left hooks. Yeah. And it was like, okay.
And Vargas, he only know how to throw one type of hook, and that is wide.
Wide left hook. Yes. Shit.
But yeah, like, you know, man, it was just, like you said, it was just back and forth. And like you said, that was a true 50-50 fight. Mm-hmm. It was just all the way around true 50-50 fight. You didn't know who was going to win. Going into the last two rounds, I was telling you, I was like, Vargas, he needs to win. He needs to win one of these rounds, like, for sure. You know what I mean? That's how close it was. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was a good fight.
Yes, guys, it was.
So with that being said,
what's the famous question?
Who you want to see Vargas fight next?
Who you want to see him fight next? I think I kind of know who you want to see him fight next. But what do you?
So there's two fights I want to see him fight. You know, there's two fights I want to see him fight. You know, obviously, you know, he wants the unification with Leo Santa Cruz, who has the WBA belt, I believe. But so that's one fight, and the other fight I want to see him fight, of course, is Gary Russell. You know what I mean? Gary Russell was the previous champion who Magsayo ended up getting the nod over. In that fight, you know, he he messed up his shoulder and didn't pretty much had one arm for 8 rounds of that fight.
Right.
So I mean, I know he's seen that fight, and so I think that would be right, and I want to see that fight. So those are the 2 fights I want to see. We can kind of get into matches, but out of those 2 fights, I mean, which one do you want to see?
I wouldn't mind seeing Leo Santa Cruz. I think that would be a good matchup for both of them. Obviously, unification is great. I think maybe it can go both ways. It's like give Gary Russell another shot, at the belt, or fight Leo and then do the belt. But I know there's been bad blood between Leo and Gary.
See, that's where I was gonna go too.
So if Vargas gives Gary Russell the opportunity, it's a high possibility that Gary Russell could win that fight.
Yeah.
And then belt on belt unification between Gary Russell and Leo Santa Cruz.
Hey, I'm glad you said that, because that's really because Gary Russell and Leo has been a fight that's been talked about for forever. I mean, they fought in the amateurs. They've gone back and forth. A lot of people were saying that Leo hasn't he won't step into the plate and fight Gary Russell. You got Gary Russell, who kind of went viral when he put his arm around Leo's daddy. You know what I mean? So I definitely want to see that fight. I don't want to see that fight gets, that's the fight I want to see. But I understand it, and both fights are good. So, the Rey Vargas versus Leo Santa Cruz, that's a good fight. Leo is also, he's got good size for the division, and the fact that it's going to be an action-packed fight. I mean, Leo, he throws a lot of punches. Comes forward.
Fighter.
Man, that's just going to be an action-packed fight. And you know what I mean? The advantages that Vargas kind of had over Magsayo as far as the size, he's gonna have that. And he's not gonna have that versus Leo. Yeah. And Leo brings in a lot of experience too, so he's not gonna have the experience level like he did over at Magsayo. Right. Leo's been in there with some dogs. I mean, some exactly. He's been in there. He's had wars with Abner Mares. We seen him. Recently he's been in there with Tank, of course. So I think that would be a good fight. And the fight with Gary Russell, man, that would be exciting to see, because the athleticism of Russell. Russell has the fastest hands in boxing. He's been known to have the fastest hands in boxing. So I'd like to see him get in there with him as well. You know what I mean? And that would be, he's a southpaw too. So I'd like to see that. Yeah,
and they were talking about it for a little bit, that it was like, I think maybe a year ago, a little less than a year ago, somewhere around there. They were talking about trying to make that fight happen, and we got so excited. Yeah, I remember you texted me. You were like, "Oh, this is in the works," and then I was like, I don't even want to get excited because...
Are you talking about Leo Gary?
Yes, Leo Gary. Yeah. I don't want to get excited because that always happens, and then they fall through, and it fell through.
But yeah, and another reason that I think it would be good for Gary and Rey Vargas to fight is because prior to Magsayo getting the fight, he was the mandatory. He was the mandatory. Rey Vargas was the mandatory for Gary Russell's belt, but he ended up fighting Baez. He ended up fighting Baez when he, as a mandatory, he could have had that fight with Gary, and it was talked about. It was actually ordered.
Well, and then what? And then Russell got the fight with Magsayo?
Yeah, Ray. For whatever reason, the fight didn't materialize, but it was ordered by the WBC, and a lot of people were expecting that fight to happen. But Magsayo ended up coming in. So that is a fight that, I think that should happen. Either one of those, you know what I mean? I'm fine with either one of those fights, but I think those three just need to fight at the end of the day.
Yes.
All three are under the PBC and fight on Showtime.
So it should be easy.
So it should be an easy fight. There's only, outside of them, the only other belt is Navarrete, but we know he's over there at top rank. But yeah, we just have to see. There's so many good fights that can be made at featherweight. And like we said, just in that division, just in that, just the PBC banner, there's 3 fights right there, championship fights they can make. Even though the Gary Russell, I do see them making the unification. It seems like that's been like the network's things to do, is to make unification bouts. So I think they'll probably end up doing the Rey Vargas versus Leo Santa Cruz. I just hope, if that does end up happening, I hope that Gary gets that opportunity to fight the winner.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Especially since he was hurt, I absolutely should think he should get that opportunity again.
Yeah. But yeah, what a great performance by Rey Vargas. He is now a 2-division world champion.
Yeah.
So, that's definitely exciting. And
shout out to Mexico. You
hey,
guys
shout
got
out to
yourself a champ.
Yep.
And his coach.
Oh yeah. You got talk about what this coach did.
Let's talk about real quick.
Yeah.
Vargas, coach Nacho, he had to make sure that he said, when they were interviewing him at the end, he was like, I think he said he's like my 26th champ, 26th champ belt that I've gotten.
Hey, he's like, put some respect on there. No, you gotta get that, say that correct.
Yes, he was like, make sure you know that this is a 26th champ. So shout out to him as well.
Yeah, and it was, they kind of go off of that. It was kind of cool to see when they brought up on the screen, the history between him and Freddie Roach. You know what I mean? He was the one that trained Juan Manuel Marquez. And when he had that one punch, knockout, who put Pacquiao to sleep. You know what I mean? He was the one who did that. So it was kind of cool to see their history and of their fighters and stuff like that. But yeah, once again, it was a great performance by Rey Vargas. We can't wait to see those other matchups that we talked about. Yeah. And we can't wait to see him back in the ring. But what a great performance. A good performance of fights on the undercards as well.
Yes.
So that's all we got. So thanks for tuning in, y'all.
And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
Or talk your shit. And we out.